I think those that say AI is not going to play a significant part in their future are just incredibly naive. Do I like using it? I'd probably say I see the benefit. I think there's a lot of negatives that go along with it as well and how it was formulated. But I think if you can use it as a way to amplify and elevate your work, I think it's fantastic. But when you're relying on it solely to produce everything for you, I think it's quite dangerous.
Hello and welcome to FOXCAST Unscripted. We've got Darren Hill with us today. Darren is a marketing strategist and someone who we've worked with closely over the years and have really enjoyed doing so. So Darren, welcome to the show. Please introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Yes, amazing. Thank you. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. So yeah, as you said, I'm a marketing strategist and creative video producer, and I work for Petrofac, who's energy services company, as their digital content and channels lead.
Tell us, what is it that you actually do? Like, what does the job entail? Yes, exactly. What does that mean?
I suppose it means anything and everything. Like most people, I do a lot. I do a lot more than I probably talk about. I think as me, I'm somebody who's driven by creating amazing content every time, particularly through video as well. In my day job, I'm responsible for the website presence and digital presence for Petrofac. So that's our social media channels, overseeing our social media content, as well as our website and our corporate footprint online as well. What I do as a day job fluctuates day to day. In one hand, I'm a very technical person who looks after websites and to make sure that our social channels are running effectively. On the other hand, I'm one of the more creative people you'll meet, and I am all about creating content, whether that's through photo, video, or written as well, or design. So yeah, I think that's the hallmarks of my career, is that I've always been content led, whether that's been photo, video, or written. Or design, as I've done it in my previous life as well. But I also have this technical side as well, where I have to look after and our more governance type aspects too.
Give us a bit of background. How did you end up here? So tell us about your journey. Where did you start out, and give us a bit of your path.
My path. So I think I've had an interesting journey to marketing anyway. So I was at school, and I was ridiculously good at accounts. I don't know why. I was terrible at maths, but I was ridiculously good at accounts. But I also wanted to go and become a film director at the time. And I did what I thought was the sensible route. And I shunned my innate creative needs and desires and went to university to do accounts and finance. I lasted 3 years, almost grabbed a degree, didn't quite. And then after that, I just needed a break and tried to figure out what was next for me. And when you're doing your soul searching, it's like what things really drove me when I was younger. I was thinking that I was probably 20 at the time. I was still pretty young, but I was like, what was the things that really got me going? And it was this trying to find creativity, but not letting go of that sort of analytical mind that I had from finance too. So I had always wanted to become a film director, so that was the creative side. And then I stumbled across marketing. Thankfully, my best friend at the time, he was doing the marketing course, and he said, why don't you just come up to a lecture with me and see if you like it or not? So I went along, absolutely loved it, and really saw that this is like probably the place for me, where I can still be super creative, but I can also use that analytical mind so that my decisions are being informed by actual data as well. So from there, I went off into the working world. I worked in the charity sector quite heavily for about 8 years. So it's where I really cut my teeth. And I think if you've ever spoken to anyone that works in the charity sector, it's terrible and great all at the same time, because you get to do everything, which is great as a younger person and learning the tricks of the trade. But the problem is you do everything. So I did a bit of graphic design. I did old school public affairs and corporate comms, working with the NHS and the local authorities. I have done like video campaigns, fundraising campaigns, worked with high net worth donors. So just a bit of everything really. And then it's sort of where my career sort of really kicked into gear was I signed up to do a master's because it was like I was starting to feel stuck in my career, and I thought, right, well, I'll just continue on my current path. So I started a corporate comms and public affairs master's because that felt like the most logical route for me. I got about 6 months into doing it, and I was just like, who am I really doing this for? And thankfully, my brother was having a child soon, and I thought, wouldn't it be great if I reignited my passion for photography and video and bought a new camera? So I decided to stop paying for the university course and put all my money into buying camera equipment. And then actually I worked at one of the universities here at the moment, and they had like 1 million events at a weekend. So I quickly became Darren's got a camera, he could do that kind of thing. So then I really got back into creating videos, doing event photography and then portrait photography. And that's sort of what's defined my career, was basically being a pure creative and content creator, but that's had that sort of analytical background, and like everything's embedded in strategy. It's not just creating content for the sake of it. So it's been quite nice that I've been able to merge the two things together, where I've still managed to do all the creative content I've enjoyed, but also making sure it's actually fit for purpose and driving business results. So, yep, that brought me here, and I'm now 3.5 years into Petrofac and managing the social and website as well. So it's a bit of a strange journey. I don't know if that's one you'd hear too often, but I think it's one of those things where, reflecting on it now, each part has been so important to bring me to where I am today. And it's all sort of been led through this wanting to tell great stories through content.
No, absolutely, and it is often the journey that defines us. And with those journeys often come challenges that we learn from. What would you say is the biggest challenge that you faced, and what did you learn from it?
Oh, that's a tough one. You're coming hard and fast with the tough questions today. I think growing up, and I think I'd been exposed to leadership positions quite early, and that was a great thing, and being in a leadership position. But I think learning how to sell in an idea has been like not the biggest challenge, but the biggest thing that's helped me in my career. And I think having clarity on your direction. So I suppose we could probably explore both a bit. But yeah, I think selling in, I think I've worked in organizations that maybe haven't been the most forward thinking in the past, and I've got this like the video side of things, which you obviously know works incredibly well. And trying to selling a new concept for the first time can be so exhausting. So I think that was one of the biggest challenges in my career, knowing that in my heart I'm right, and then eventually being able to prove it, that we're choosing the right direction. That's been quite hard. And I suppose the second thing would be clarity on your career, because it's I think there's just not enough support for people when they're, especially coming out of university, or if you don't go to university as well. It's so hard to figure out. I envy those people who wake up when they're 5 years old and think, yeah, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. I'm going to go be an astronaut, or I'm going to be this doctor or whatever. I don't think I ever had that. And it's probably only been the last like 6 months where I've been able to unpack the sort of drivers of my life and career to figure out, well, what am I and what do I want to be? Which sounds crazy at 34, but maybe a good thing I figured it out now and not not in 20 years time. It's in my real driver has been that it's like that storytelling, and it doesn't matter what sort of medium it is. I prefer video, but I think you can tell stories, and I think it's been hard to sort of, when people ask me what I do, and I don't really know. I do marketing, that's it. I do digital marketing more concisely, but it's like what's been that single driving force throughout my career, and it's storytelling, and that's something that I've only recently discovered that's been the thing that's tied everything together that I've done.
Yeah, I mean, from working with us, you'll know how strong emphasis on narrative and how important that is to deliver engaging messaging is something that's quite important to actually deliver high quality work. So from a marketing strategy perspective, what is your philosophy on putting together, say a stakeholder comes to you with a they need to sell this product or they want to deliver this message. What's your philosophy around putting that strategy together end to end and making sure that you're doing what is needed?
Yeah, I think it always comes back to business goals. And I think as marketers, we're particularly bad at not forcing the issue with it, because I think it's been this ever-present battle, right, where you have business impact, but you don't often show it in the right way to the business leaders. So I think going through the process of really hammering home, well, what do we want to achieve as a business this year? And then working back from there, how can marketing help support that, is particularly harder in B2B industries with a long sales cycle as well. And then having your solid business objectives, marketing objectives, and then understanding who your audience is so that you can effectively sell or persuade and engage them. And then when you do have stakeholders coming to you, you already know this is almost like this is my checklist. If you don't tick these things, then we don't move forward on this, or we need to think again. So I think once you have that in place, and I'm a massive fan of content pillars as well, so you can understand where each of the which of the parts fit in there. But I think it's working with them to understand is that, because we'll get requests from people who are out with marketing, and it's such a specialist subject, but it's also very tangible to people because everyone uses social media, everyone uses websites, everyone touches magazines, so people think they know exactly the same, but it's like, okay, there's layers to this now. You're seeing an end product, you're not seeing what's gone into that. So when we do get a request, it's sitting down and working with them, and you'll know the same as well. It's that conversation that start to understand, okay, you've presented me with something, but what are you actually trying to achieve with this? So I'm like, you'll often get here's a finished campaign I want to do, and like, okay, yeah, let's work back. Why do you want to do that? What are you trying to achieve through this campaign? Are you trying to get more signups? Are you trying to raise awareness? Which stage of the funnel is it in as well? Is it an awareness campaign? Is it a final decision campaign? So it is when you start I think the first time you start to work with new stakeholders that aren't used to your style, and they're like, oh, this is deeper than I realized at the moment. So I think that's my main philosophy is always starting with business goals and then working back from there, business goals, marketing goals, understanding your audience, and then showing how you can create that content. And I think that informs the content as well, is that if your audience isn't on LinkedIn, your audience is on TikTok, your content's going to look massively different than if you were just creating for a LinkedIn profile, for example. So I think that knowing those three things is my non-negotiables before we actually engage in a conversation. Right, how are we going to address this through marketing?
Okay, that's really, really interesting. So the marketing industry is changing quite a lot. What is your view on the current state of the industry? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities?
Oh man, it's I didn't want to say AI today, but I'm gonna have to. I can't not start this by saying AI, and it's one of those. I think we collectively, and perhaps you as a filmmaker yourself, had a collective gut check moment last year when all the AI stuff was coming out, and it was. I think we all had this look inside ourselves of like, I don't want to say what's the point, but it is like, what's our reason to exist here? How do we keep adding value if these tools are going to come in? And then when you've had that panic inside yourself, you can then say, right, actually, let's look at the facts and say, I think those that say AI is not going to play a significant part in their future are just incredibly naive. Do I like using it? I'd probably say I see the benefit. I think there's a lot of negatives that go along with it as well and how it was formulated. But I think if you can use it as a way to amplify and elevate your work, I think it's fantastic. And I think there was actually, I was reading an article about The Brutalist the other day, which I haven't seen yet, but it does look absolutely stunning as a film. And it was all shot on 70mm film, all super organic, but they used AI to help basically perfect the accents of Adrian Brody and Felicity Jones, who are speaking Hungarian. When they speak Hungarian in the scenes, it's such a hard language to understand and perfect, even though Adrian Brody's got, I think his mother's Hungarian. So they used AI basically and fed it in from one of the, I can't remember if it was one of the guys on set or part of the production team who was Hungarian, so they could get the accent and just tweak their voices ever so subtly. And they said it's something they'd always done to just add that. It seems strange saying AI to make it more authentic, but to make the accents more authentic, they trained an AI model to do it within about 7 hours, whereas it would have taken thousands of hours. And they did said the movie wouldn't have been out today had they have done it the old way of tweaking audio and things like that. So I think those images, when it enhances your work, I think that's great. But when you're relying on it solely to produce everything for you, I think it's quite dangerous. But I think where we are I think there's probably less imminent change than we think, because there's big headlines in that. But I think it's, from my perspective as a marketer, the basics have never been truer, and this is why I'm so heavily involved in strategy, and that's where I like to start all of my planning from. Because while the outcomes change slightly, what we do hasn't changed massively, where we're always looking to, how do we support the business through great marketing, and then working back from there. And AI is one of those tools, and I think the evolution of social platforms is also quite interesting, where they're all obviously pushing video at this point, but LinkedIn, for example, obviously is massively pushed video, but they're not quite rewarding people who are creating videos yet, where the reach and the organic reach of it isn't. Yeah. It's still almost like a pay-to-play sort of arena, where you have to give it a little boost with ads if you want to try and reach the right people. So it's interesting how they will do it, but I think it's sort of there's so much change. I think that as a marketing industry and people who work with marketers, it's all about the basics, right? How are we creating the best content possible for your audience, and how are we going to execute it and distribute it in a way that people are actually going to see it and engage with it? So I think that's true, and it will always be true. And although algorithms will change overnight, great content never really changes. And I think if anything, it gives your content more longevity that with trends, because it's ever present on the internet, and something might come back around. But I think the basics are what everyone needs to stick to at the moment. And I think spotting opportunities for new tools when they come up for you is because I think social media will reward you for early mover advantage. So I think being open to change and open to these new things, and just seeing what works for you, because what one platform or one style of content that works for one company won't work for another. And especially as we do verge into this sort of video-centric world, not everyone has the right people to be on camera, for example, and it's either for you or it's not. And we can put in lots of training to make sure people are great and people can get to a really good level. But if it's going to drain the people you work with by forcing them to show up on camera every day, there's still really successful people out there. If it suits their business and the type of person they have, great content wins. So that's why blogs are still so important to the online world. It's why you'll see text posts performing that are about this long on LinkedIn, where you have to scroll down it. They'll perform just as good as, or if not better than, a video post. So I think it's like assessing what you have in your team, taking risks where you can and it works for your brand, but then staying true to those basic marketing principles and understanding that you're there to support the business reach its audience and reach its goals.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's true what you say about AI. I heard someone say the other day that your job's not going to be taken by AI, but it will be taken by someone using AI, which I thought was quite, because it is a productivity tool in the end of the day. And I think so leaning into it is probably advisable. I know that's what we're doing here. In your day-to-day, if you could build a tool using AI that would make your life 1,000,000 times easier, what would that be?
Oh my. Oh yeah, you know what? It's starting to come, actually. I do love I think it's a great way to sort of understand sort of inflow of communication. So you can get communication in, and it just automatically can give you a summary of what's coming and what's needed. Would I use? I think if some things operate in the background, I think certainly from a technical standpoint, the website, there's a lot of things that just need upkeep. And I think if the AI could just take it and say if there was a problem that popped up, and AI could just take care of that. I think that's it. I think it's all about if there was a way that we could use it to allow more time for creativity, but also more time to just be face to face with people. I think the best stories still come from talking to people. So I think if it could take away my administrative tasks a bit more, then I think it's just leaving that room to have face-to-face conversation with people and understanding where the stories are coming from in the business that can help us reach our goals.
And your future, right? So what's your aims? Where do you see yourself in 10, 15 years time?
God, 10, 15 years is a long time. I'd like to live in Lisbon at that point. I absolutely adore Lisbon. If you've never been before, highly recommend that. So I'll be on a flight hopefully by that point or before then. I think that. And I think, I'm definitely more leaning into my creative side. I've worked with brands that I've absolutely loved in the past, and working in the brand space, but also heavily focused on storytelling, whatever guise that takes. I still think it'll be interesting to see what's come up by then, if there's any new technology or anything like that. But I think it would be, if I was in a job where I was hopefully leading quite a large team and we were just creating really great content that we could be proud of, the content that you actually tell your mates who are all engineers and stuff like that. Have you seen what we did today? Like, I think that's like my barometer of success, and it's how I approach a lot of my research calls with our engineers at Petrofac as well. It's like, what's the one, like, I'm not going to fully understand what you're saying, but what is the one thing that you'd be so proud that you would still bore everyone you know with and tell them at the pub? So I think that's where I'd like to be, is leading a team, probably more in sort of a creative director role, where we were just creating really great things that we could all be proud of, but also as well we're actually helping the business that we're operating in reach its goals as well. And I think it's I think it'll be interesting. Who knows what the next 5 years will look like, but I think if that's my core principles, is as long as creativity is at the heart of everything and we're just creating great stuff that we could be really proud of.
And you're a podcaster yourself.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your podcast channel. What content do you cover, and what value do you provide there?
Yeah, so I am the I'm going to say the founder and host of the Energy Talks podcast at my company Petrofac, and that was when did we start that? Maybe a couple of years ago now. And I think because engineering is such a complex subject, and there's so much change in the world with basically the race to net zero and sustainability, that it was sort of the time where we felt like we needed to produce something that we could get under the hood of these different subjects. So it was very much like, the topics are the topics, but that's what I always say to the team, is that, right, you have your topic, but what's the story in that topic? So what's the real driving force? What makes it interesting? What's an opinion? And for us as a company, it was our people. And it was like, it almost became glaringly obvious that we had this great group of people. We want to work with them, want to get out there and share their opinion, because their opinion is not only valuable to us as a company, but I feel it's really valuable to the sector as well. So we started that process a few years ago. Thankfully, I was in a band when I was younger, so audio equipment came quite easily to me, and then recorded. And it came to that point with my my lovely boss, Sophie, and we said, cool, we're going to do it. This is great. I've got all the equipment. It's all going to be great. We're going to produce it in-house, so we've got maximum control, and we can really put our engineers and whoever we're talking to at ease, because it's just us. They know us really well. And then the awkward pause between, well, who's going to host it then? And she was like, I thought you were going to host it. I was like, oh, okay. All right, that's fine. I think it was a really exciting opportunity, and I think it was nice. It was a nice sort of rubber stamp that she trusted me and to produce this and obviously host it. And I think at that point in my career, I had just spent the last almost decade in the charity sector, and I was like, and that was my comfort zone. And if you asked me anything to do with that, I worked with mental health and cancer and research and things like that. And I could talk to you all day about that. And I was just at the point in my career where I not long started in the energy sector, and I was like, oh, a gut check moment again, where I was like, right, I now need to lift myself up again, really get into the sort of crux of what what the important topics are and what drives them forward and what drives our people forward to achieve them. So yeah, that was a nice tick anyway as well. I also have like long hair and a beard as well, and I was like, is this how we want to show up? Is it just being on brand as ever? I was like, is this how we want to show up as a brand? So I think that was nice. I know I look a bit different than your average energy sector employee, so I wanted to make sure that we're on brand for that. So it was a nice tick for that. And it's been a really good project. We actually won an award from Communicate magazine, in their Lens Awards, for not only our approach but also how we distributed the content. Because I love creating good content, but so many great content just goes to die because they've not thought of how they're going to distribute it. So we had this really solid distribution plan in with cutting up the clips for different platforms or expanding on the clips, creating blog posts and things like that. And I think that's what made that stand out as a podcast in itself. And we'll be into our next season in a few months' time as well. So I'm excited for that to come around as well. Okay.
Obviously, everyone's following your lead here on the corporate podcasting, which is the next big thing. As someone who spotted the value in this really early on, before everyone else did, what would you say to other businesses? Why should they be doing podcasting?
Podcasting to me in 2025 is an absolute no-brainer if you video record it. If you're not videoing it, then I think you're missing a huge opportunity. I would also recommend that they actually either you're be really brave, or B, hire someone like you to come in and actually record it, because it's such an undertaking. And what people see as an end result, which is a 15-minute podcast, is actually maybe about 2-3 months work. So there is that initial, again, so we have our business goals, we have our marketing goals, and right, how does a podcast feed into that? What's our targets and what's our strategy as a business? Where are we trying to grow? And how do we want to position ourselves in the energy sector space for us, for example? So that's our sort of starting point. And then it is, doing outreach across the business, finding out those people who have a story to tell. I always say, I'm not interested in you talking about a topic. I want you to have a strong opinion on it, because otherwise it's just you're just talking about something for the sake of it. So I think I want people with strong opinions. If they're comfortable on camera, that's great. If they're not, we still love to work with them. And I think that's a nice challenge I like to take on, and making people feel at ease, and helping them through the process as well. And then it's having that, being as prepared as you can. It's one of those weird ones, and you'll know this from doing video content for years as well, is that you want people to be prepared, but you don't want them to have a script, because then it's just not natural. So we do work with them to make sure they feel empowered, almost as if they're going to speak on a press interview. So they've got all the right information, but at the end of the day, all we want them to do is what is it actually like working here? And being a bit more emotive in our questions, rather than just, what is this? It's like, cool, well, how does that make you feel? Or is this important? Or is this what's driving you to do this? Because some of our team take on amazing challenges throughout the energy sector. And it's really interesting to hear what's actually driving them personally, versus we're doing it because the business has to do it. So I do that. And definitely have a solid distribution plan before you even film it. So if you're working with if you're working internally, great, have that in mind. But if you're working with an agency like yourself, have that conversation up front and really keep that two-way communication going of this is what we're trying to achieve with it. This is where our audience is. How do we make that happen in the right way? And that was particularly through our shorts and what actually really drove it for us was the trailers that we created for the episodes. The trailers were such a good hook for us in pushing people to not only the podcast but to our website. So if you can put the effort into creating a really tight 30 to 45 second trailer for your episode, I think that's the absolutely smartest thing to do. But I think I would say it's so rewarding. It's great to see out in the world, but I also just working with people generally is after we've done the podcast with somebody or done a video as well, is that the sort of qualitative feedback you get from them. They're like, thank you. I hated you when you asked me. Why did you put me through this? But now that I've done it, I feel like I've really conquered something in my own mind. I feel a bit more confident. And then when we send them off to do presentations, they're like, oddly, people find a camera or me scarier than like talking in front of 500 people. So they feel like, well, I've done a podcast now, I can do anything. So it's really good. It gives you that really good, solid messaging. This is something I've learned recently. Starting a YouTube channel is that because I'm going through the process of researching topics, scripting, and then actually having to say it out loud in front of a camera, I now have all these almost banks of lines and opinions that I've formulated, but when I'm asked about them, I have them ready to go. So it's a great way to start really shape your opinions, and especially if you put the real time and effort into working with your subject matter experts. It's a great tool that goes beyond the views and the listens on the podcast.
So if someone wants to follow in your footsteps, what would you recommend?
Wow. I'd ask them, do you want to start with? I think I would say I'm not a massive believer in university. I think if you want to do it, it's great. I'm hoping that businesses are now seeing that not all the best talent comes from university. I'd rather have that passionate individual with the right attitude to come in, regardless of what their background is. So I think I think the biggest drivers in my career have been 100% self-led. It's not because somebody said, oh, would you like to do this? It's like, no, I'm going to do this. Are you with me? So I think it's having that attitude of, right, nothing's beneath me. I want to learn. I'm going to go and do this for experience. Do that. I think if you're looking to get into content, thankfully we all have phones now that are way better than the cameras we both probably started with. So I think it is creating content, but I think I would say that start creating content, but create it for the brands or the places you want to work. So don't just create. I think creating content for the sake of it is a great step one. As you sort of get into it, start studying different campaigns, study corporate campaigns, study YouTubers, understand what makes their video ticks and because it's all about how do we engage audiences and how do we tell stories. So that should be your two driving forces, right? Once you start to understand that, start creating sort of spec spots of brands you want to work with, whether that's like a proposed idea for a social media campaign, whether it's a blog, whether it's a video, and then sort of move on from there. And don't be afraid to reach out to people on LinkedIn as well. I think it's the two biggest drivers I've had in the last couple of years, to give them shout out, is I joined a program called Fabric Academy, which is helmed by Lisa Eaton. She's an incredible marketer and marketing strategist, and that's where I've always done marketing strategy, but that's where I've been able to formalize it in my idea. And that's somebody who's been there, done that, and that was so much more beneficial than university. So I think that's a great place to give you real grounding in marketing. The content side things, I think you're able to figure out yourself and just try it, just shoot into and edit till you feel like you've got it. And then the second part would be to get yourself a coach. I think the biggest thing that I've had in my career recently is working with a coach who has been there, done that. We got on, so it's one of those I look forward to it, just to see how each other's been. But I think it's having somebody that's at 2, 3, 4 steps ahead of you, their journey is not the same, right? But they can tell you how they've got through things, or even just act as a sounding board. My biggest problem is, like, I've got all these ideas and I just don't quite know where to channel them. And I think having a coach, and especially as you're growing up as well, it's good to have somebody there that is actually an expert in their field, in the field that you want to be in, to help guide you on your way. They're not going to do it for you, but they're going to help guide you. So I think if you have the right attitude, you're prepared to put the work in, focus on telling great stories and engaging audiences, and you'll be fine.
Great stuff. So if someone wants to get hold of you, what's the best way? Where can they find you?
Nice one. I am on LinkedIn, so you can type in Darren Hill on LinkedIn or go straight to my profile, which is Darren Hill 24. I am also on YouTube, which is also Darren Hill 24, I think, or maybe I don't have that yet, so take a rein on that. So if you go to my LinkedIn channel, you will see the post. I post probably a few times a week, and I like to post like marketing tips, storytelling advice, and brand campaigns as well. So a lot of the things I do in my work, but also when I spot things in the wild that I like to comment on as well. And I'm very passionate about supporting sort of businesses and younger marketers as well into getting them a sort of foothold in the marketing industry.
Fantastic. Darren, thank you so much. This has been a really enlightening conversation. And everyone out there, please like and subscribe for more content. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks.